I spend a long time talking with Michelle Labrosse. We're probably going to talk for 3 hours about everything that she's done in the government space, her company. You're going to learn more than just government contracting in this one. You're going to learn a lot about what it takes to sell and build a successful business, but you're also going to learn a lot about how to sell to the government because she was very successful there, still is very successful. We talked about everything from her start in the Air Force as an engineer, getting out early at 25, where she starts a business and she has general officers and colonels working for her. And she's bringing in millions of dollars for other businesses. And then for herself, we'll go over how she, and it's something we talk about, we call it bottoms up selling to the government, how she's doing that with her current company, and just some of the tips and strategies she's used over the years. But there's one theme here. I believe the word she used was chutzpah. Determination and persistence is what I would call it. And she learned a lot of that in the Air Force. You can learn a lot by listening to her. This is a really exciting episode. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us this week on DoD Contract Academy. Today, I've got Michelle, founder and CEO of Cheetah Learning. Hey, Michelle, how are you today?
I'm great, Ricky. Thank you for having me on your show. And I liked our preamble. I think we have great energy here.
Yeah, no, first of all, anyone that was in the Air Force at some point in their career is always going to be a welcome guest on this show. And there's just that camaraderie that you get with someone else that served that you can't recreate.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love your graphic there, your Cheetah Agile projects.
Yeah, my cheetah jacket.
Oh, yeah, look, everything's Cheetah. God,
Everything's cheetah. Yeah, it's so funny. Everybody gives me all this cheetah stuff. I can wear cheetah clothes 7 days a week, head to toe. So
Oh,
many
my
people have
word.
been doing this for 22 years. And so it's been great branding, but it's actually legitimate because we do everything cheetah fast.
I love it. I love it. Well, we'll
Cheetah.
get into Cheetah here in a few minutes, but why don't we start with you? If you could maybe tell our audience a little bit about you, like where'd you grow up and how'd you end up in the Air Force and school and your businesses, all of that. We want to know it all.
All right. So I grew up in a large Catholic family in Connecticut and 6 kids. And so my parents had 6 kids in 8 years, and I was one of the middle ones. And so when I was going to be a junior in college, there was going to be 5 of us in college. So I was really good at science and math, and I looked at the Air Force opportunities, and I got a full ride Air Force ROTC scholarship to go to Syracuse.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, it was great. So I was in aerospace engineering. And it was interesting because Connecticut has a lot of aerospace, and University of Connecticut did not have an aerospace program. So
Oh,
I
that's
went to
weird. Yeah.
Syracuse. I know it was weird. They had mechanical engineering, but not aerospace, which was just really strange.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to go into aerospace, and I was a product of the space program. I grew up, Pratt and Whitney was in my hometown. I took classes there in high school. And so it got me excited about aerospace. And I was little, I was like 6 or 7 when they landed on the moon.
Oh, man.
And
Yeah.
so that was like the promise of aerospace. It was like, I wasn't going to be a mechanical engineer. I'm going
Yeah.
into space.
There you go.
Way more interesting. What does a 17 and 18-year-old know about the difference between aerospace and mechanical engineering? Is not much, right?
Hmm.
So I wanted to go to aerospace, and I didn't want to go that far from home. I could have gone. I was looking at University of Washington in Seattle, another big aerospace school.
Yeah.
Like Embry-Riddle, a big aerospace school.
Sure.
But I went to Syracuse, had a Air Force scholarship, and I did really well in college. Syracuse was a great fit for me, and I graduated top of my class. I was the class marshal, and I graduated with this. I was a distinguished graduate with the Air Force, and I got a regular commission when I got out. When I was active, when I started as a regular Air Force officer, which was a big deal for an ROTC person because you usually start as a reserve officer. And I got stationed at Wright-Patterson. And Patterson was a great Air Force base to get stationed at as an aerospace engineer because they're buying all of the upgraded Air Force systems.
All right.
And it was interesting because at Wright-Patterson, there were 40 generals and 400 colonels and 2,000 lieutenants.
Very officer heavy. And for those listening, so Wright-Patt Air Force Base is, because I often talk about the fact that most people in the government are never going to be able to buy anything from you, right? There's an officer corps, but Wright-Patt is like the mecca of acquisitions in the Air Force. Right. It is like the biggest acquisitions base. They're buying everything. And that's why it's so officer heavy, because it's military officers make up our program managers, our engineers, our contracting officers, just any acquisition space, including Hanscom, which is a smaller version. Yeah, very heavy on the officer side.
It was awesome awesome way to get started in aerospace engineering. I was started off in an aircraft structures office. And so basically, one of my first projects was upgrading the bomb systems on F-15s and making sure that they had the structural integrity. The wings had the structural integrity to carry new weapon systems. And so those programs were called Seek Eagle. And so there was a lot of different testing and modeling of the planes. And actually, the companies did all of that. And we just oversaw it, make sure they were following the military standards. So I got my master's degree in mechanical engineering.
Very cool. And did you get that from AFID, or was that through Syracuse also? Or?
No, I went to University of Dayton because that was the school that was in town. And it was funny because it was all lieutenants in my class. We're all second lieutenants getting our master's degrees. It was just like a continuation of college, getting stationed at Wright-Patt. I had so many friends. All of my classmates in aerospace engineering from Syracuse got stationed at Wright-Patt.
Oh, awesome.
So it was like we'd meet Friday happy hour. It was just like we were back in college again at the officers club. I really loved my time in the Air Force. So after I got my master's degree in mechanical, I talked to my boss and I said, I'm not sure I'm going to make this a career. What office? Because we were a matrix organization. So we were like the engineering home office and we were part out to program offices. And I said, what office could I go into that could give me a lot of exposure to what's going on in industry? And he said, I have a great opportunity for you because nobody in this office wants to go there, but you might love it. And it was an electronic warfare office. And so I was a mechanical engineer doing electronic reliability in an office supporting 40 different programs. Wow. So here I am, 24 years old, going to all of these different electronic defense contractors, making sure that their reliability testing procedures were up to snuff. And I was also working on source selections. And so we get to DoD contracting. So I was the engineer reviewing these engineering proposals for different electronic warfare systems. And I learned a lot about proposal writing and proposal reviewing. And luckily for me, there was a huge sea state change towards the end of my time in the Air Force, where the Air Force stopped telling the defense contractors what to do, and they started just telling them what they needed. And so I had to rewrite a bunch of specifications. So basically, we didn't tell them how they should do their testing anymore, but we required that the electronics be built more robustly, because electronics fail for mechanical reasons. They fail with connector problems. They fail because of vibrations. Like you put a piece of electronics on a fighter plane, it's getting shaken up a lot more than it is anywhere else.
Yeah.
And when I was 25, I was rewriting all of these new testing standards for electronics. And I got out of the Air Force and I parlayed that into a business of writing test standards, testing procedures for companies, for electronic companies. All of the aerospace companies and then all of the car manufacturers became my clients. And I wrote papers on durability testing for electronics, which was a very different field than electronic reliability, which is all probabilistic in nature. My tests were all mechanical engineering in nature. So we would heat up and cool down the electronics and stress test them. We put them on vibration shakers and we'd find out vibration instabilities between the cards and their holders and what was causing these components to break in planes. And it was really cool. Like General Motors, their electronics division was one of my big clients when I got out. So I did that business for about 5 years. I had a lot of government. I worked with a lot of government contractors, like Hughes was one of my big clients, Boeing. And then I had a training class on, it was called Avionics Integrity and how do you improve the integrity of avionics. But I did that for a couple of years. And I wrote a bunch of proposals too. I was pretty good. My track record was pretty good with winning.
So let me ask you this. What did you learn? Because obviously it sounds like you used a lot of what you knew, not just from being an engineer, but of course, being on these review boards for proposals. And I've had to oversee quite a few of these and be involved with it. What did you learn that helped you later on when you were writing proposals?
I learned that you just can't copy from one proposal to the next. Right. We really had to show some pretty rigorous engineering analysis of the electronics design from a mechanical perspective and how it would work reliably in the more rugged environment.
Right.
So And the companies weren't used to doing that. They were used to just saying, we ran this probabilistic analysis and this is how the components are going to work. That's not good enough. We had to show the integrity of the solder and the integrity of the design processes. And I actually had to help them design their test labs and that type of thing. So it had to show a little bit more capability and an ability to actually deliver a robust product.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so much you can gain from that, especially seeing, okay, what areas are being scored down because they're maybe just hand waving it, and what areas you really have to focus on and put attention at. So you learned that, and now you've been using that after I guess you got out of the Air Force and you started writing proposals. Let's talk about that. Where did that take you?
That was interesting because I was so junior when I got out. I got promoted to captain after I was out because I was in the IRR, the Individual Ready Reserve. Yeah. But I got out as a first lieutenant. I got out 3 years because they were offering this early out program. It was during the budget cuts in the late 80s, and they were trying to get rid of first lieutenants because we were more expensive than second lieutenants. So I volunteered. The needs of the Air Force always come first. And so I took that into account.
There you go.
I really wanted to start my own company, which is pretty risky at 25. But I think, what the heck? What's going to be the worst thing that's going to happen is I will make a ton of contacts, right? Yeah. And I'll find a company that I really like. I did get a lot of job offers from my clients. And I learned a lot about running businesses. But one of the things I say, and I still say it to this day, your strengths lead to your weaknesses. I had such a thriving business writing proposals, doing those test specs, test designs, designing the labs, that I didn't really learn how to sell. I didn't really learn how to market that well. And I wanted to create a mass market product, right? So in 1995, and plus I had started studying how to teach more effectively because I was teaching classes to defense contractors on avionics integrity. And I really wanted to become better at teaching. Yeah. And so I got involved with ASTD at the time, and I think they're called ASD now, but I joined some groups on accelerated learning. And it really activated my avocational interests in teaching. My parents were both teachers, so I think it's part of my DNA. Yeah. And then I took some educational psychology classes, and I took classes on designing accelerated learning curriculum and got really into that. And so in 1995, so I started my first business in 87. In 1995, I really wanted to create a whole bunch of online curriculum, which then we're talking 1995. Yeah, that's hard. Right? Yeah. I had 300 colleges selling my online courses, and they were all business development type courses using this accelerated learning system I created for online learning. I didn't have anybody registering. So that was my first, right? That was my first business I tanked. It was called Wired for Success.
You said that, I just want to back up a little bit. You said that you needed to learn how to sell because you wanted to create a mass market product, but you clearly at least knew how to sell on a limited basis because you were working with all the big defense contractors, it sounds, and all these companies.
I had no competition.
Yeah. How did you sell it?
I called them. I do presentations. I was pretty well written author in this field. And I would just call these companies and I would say, hey, I understand you're bidding on XYZ. And I said, when I won my first contract out the door, I won the company $40 million. And I said, I wrote the proposal for this company and I know you guys are bidding on it. Would you like to talk to me about it? And usually I'd call all of them. I'd call everybody bidding on it. And always one of them would hire me. And so, you guys, I'm calling everybody. So I would get hired.
That's really smart. So how would you, because there are people listening probably wondering, okay, like today, obviously things are a lot different with solicitations and everything today, at least from a standpoint.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable telling how I got my information because it was my friend still at Wright Pat who told me who was bidding.
Oh, I see. Very well. Hey, relationships are a big part of selling to the government. No question about it.
My friends at Wright Pat would tell me, I said, who's bidding on this contract? And they'd give me their names and everything. And I would just call them. And the funny thing is, this was 1987. I did this till 1994, 95. Yeah, I think it was maybe 96. I still had some clients there. In there. But that was 9 years. I did it for 9 years. And I would call them and talk to them and chat them up. And it did take some chutzpah, to call this person. But I would send them my papers that I'd written and they had heard about me. and a little bit of negotiation back and forth. The funniest thing is I was working with this one company up in Michigan, and I always put the red team together.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I'd hire these retired generals. The first red team
That's
I put
funny.
together was with my very first contract. My boss from the Air Force, he retired 3 months after I left.
Very nice.
And he had worked on a
Hired him.
lot of source selection. So he was the first one I hired on my red team. And so
Excellent.
I'm out there, and now I'm his boss. And that was so funny. And then the whole red team, when I was there at my first contract, I met a bunch of other people doing red teams. And so I asked them if they would like to be on red teams with me on future contracts. So I bring in my red team and we beat up their contract. Mm-hmm. And so I'm out to dinner with one of these retired generals up in Michigan, and he's really happy about his hourly rate. He wasn't on my team yet for red teams, right? And I was twice his hourly rate.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so he's telling me, I'm making great money. I said, so I don't mean to ask, but what are they paying you an hourly rate? And he said, if you come on my red team, I'll double that. And so my red teams were getting twice as much because we were winning.
Yeah.
And that was funny. I think I was 26 or 27 then. And wow.
That's awesome. And it also just goes to show a lot of, because I had a similar experience. I stayed in a little bit longer than you, but yeah, a lot of colonels and even generals that are out there, they're retiring. They want to do things like consulting. They want to work on these projects. A lot of them don't know how to sell, and a lot of them don't want to sell either. And I've had that. Hey, Rick, get me the work. I don't want to sell. Just tell me what to do and put me on it. Here are my rates. And that's interesting. It's empowering too. And it's funny, you're so young doing that and being so successful.
But I think the Air Force helped me become as ballsy as I was.
Yeah.
Because I look young now, okay? I'm 61. I look like I'm 40s, okay? In my 20s, I looked like I was 15, right? Okay. And so I'm in there and I'm in companies and I'm the customer and I'm talking to 50-year-old guys. Yeah. And I'm telling them, your approach isn't going to work here. We need to work. We need to get on board with these new test specs. We need to get on board with this new mil spec approach. And I remember I was at this one Edwards Air Force Base, and we were doing this really cool test on this new trainer that was twin tails. And this guy lived behind my in-laws, right? Mm-hmm. And he was my in-laws' age, and he kept calling me little girl. Yeah. And I said, excuse me, you need to refer to me as Lieutenant Labrosse. And I said, and I'm not, you can't call me little girl. That's offensive. Yeah. And this
is back in the 80s, right?
This is back in the 80s. And I wrote him up.
Good.
Right. I wrote him up. I filed a complaint. He didn't stop calling me little girl. And it was offensive. And so I wrote him up, and I met my in-laws for Thanksgiving, and they're like, yeah, he lost his job.
Oh no. You know what?
I'm like, hey, you can't call your customer, you can't be offensive to the customer. What do you think you're going to do? So, I mean, like, I learned to be my own advocate in the Air Force. And the Air Force was like, I'm the customer. You don't put up with that behavior. That's disrespectful. It's insulting. And I called it executive presence. The Air Force, anybody listening to that, the Air Force officer training program teaches you executive presence at such a young age. Yeah. So then it was not a big deal for me to get out of the Air Force and make these phone calls. Of course, these guys are going to hire me. I'm going to help you win $40 million.
Yeah, exactly.
It's, hey, I'm qualified. I know I'm qualified. And it's like you're helping the companies out. When that company wins, think about this. If you don't like to do sales, I want you to think about this, okay? You're not just helping that company out. You're helping everybody that company employs. You're helping that whole community. They need your service.
Yeah, it's true.
Right. And so when you look at it that way, you're not just calling to feather your own nest, right? You're calling to really help this company stay a thriving member of their community. And that makes it much easier to make the sales calls. Yeah. Because you have a higher calling.
It's interesting. I don't mean to cut you off, but this is a good point. And this talks to sales, I think, in general, especially today. Mm-hmm. Today, people don't want to pick up the phone and call somebody. Right. People want to use social media advertising. People want to use email campaigns. And look, I email people. We all have to email, but especially with government contracting, but even in B2B we'll talk today with B2B. If you pick up the phone and call somebody, you get into a meeting, into a room with somebody face to face. That's where a lot of the magic can happen. And I think chutzpah, or however you want to, whatever you want to put a label on it, that's going to separate you from everybody else. Everyone else.
And what's interesting, what got me the most amount of business was an actual letter. I got a bunch of addresses. I sent out a letter to 40 people
Hmm.
that I knew. I put together this great list, and I sent an actual letter, and then it was in a big envelope and I don't remember, some little gift. People opened it, and then they called me.
Oh,
And
nice.
and then I had a conversation with them, and I booked so much business from that 40-piece mailing. It was unbelievable. So you can't you can't say, oh, I'm the standard thing about selling, oh, I'm interrupting somebody, or oh, they don't want to hear from me, or any of the stupid self-talk that's going in your
Yeah.
head. And oh, they're what if they reject me? Oh, big deal. They haven't
Yeah.
ever accepted you in the first place, so they can't reject you.
Don't get into sales if you don't want to deal with rejection. I like
Yeah,
hearing no. Like, I want to hear no. Make them say no. Good.
yeah.
I'll get you off my list, or just keep hitting you and move on to the next.
Yeah, but a mass market product is much different. So I'm business to business consumer now.
Hmm.
And I wanted to learn about another thing is I'm like my friends joke, I'm a rocket scientist, right? Because I have an aerospace engineering degree.
Yeah.
I'm not a rocket scientist, right?
You can
But
tell them that though.
yeah, I just think it's funny. And how can you grow that type of business that I had, right? It was so dependent on my expertise.
That's true.
And so I wanted to grow a business. I wanted to have a real business that was scalable, that I could grow. And that's one of the reasons why I got into education, because it's much easier to grow an education business than it is a consulting business. And I didn't want to compete in consulting with like McKinsey or Anderson. And I didn't want to
Yeah.
go join them either. I didn't want that's not what I wanted my life to be.
Sure.
And also when you look at scalability, when you're charging per the hour, how can you scale that?
Yeah, you're right. I feel like you're business coaching me right now, right? Same thing that I encountered starting a consulting company outside of the Air Force, right? Now, all of a sudden it's okay. They want to hire me because of my expertise, but very quickly my time is gone. So I have to find either other people with my expertise or figure out something different, which is why we have the academy now, because it's training. Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I got into training. And I loved accelerated learning. From a human potential perspective, I got it. After I failed my first company, Wired for Success, it was
Mhm.
down in flames. I got divorced. I lost my
Oh
house.
no.
Business failure. And I was 33 years old or 34 or something. I was around that time.
Yeah.
And I think it was 35. I finally threw in the towel and went and got a job as a research scientist in systems engineering for the Pratt and Whitney engineering research company. I moved back home.
Yeah.
And I lived 3 miles from my parents. They helped me raise my kids. It was fantastic. But when I was there was like 150 engineers and scientists who called themselves project managers and 250 different ways of doing projects. And I was a very good facilitator. I had learned all of these great facilitation skills in my government contracting business.
Yeah.
And so I started facilitating project disaster recovery with these teams. And it was fun. And I was relaunching their projects with them.
Hmm.
And so my boss wanted me to create a facilitations course. And I said, we need a really simple project management course here. And I had been taking accelerated learning classes, and I knew that this base, project management, was really ripe for some really good curriculum design.
Right.
Right. And she says to me, we're sending people to a 5-day course on project management. I don't really want you wasting your time doing that. And I said, obviously that 5-day course is not working.
Yeah. Obviously.
Because I have meetings scheduled out the kazoo relaunching people's projects, because once a research scientist hits the roadblock and their projects are spiraling out of control, it's hurting their career.
Yeah.
They needed help quick. So they got rid of my department.
Why did they do that?
Because the department was obviously not effective. They're sending people to this 5-day class. People still.
I gotcha. Right.
So they kept me on board, and they had me report to the chief operating officer of the company. They wanted me to continue facilitating my meetings.
Good.
And so I asked the head of the company if I could create a 1-day project management class. And he said, go for it. And I designed this really fun class using accelerated learning to teach how to do good project management in 1 day. And it was very interactive. It was really fun. And so I was teaching it all of the divisions. And he calls me into his office about a year of this shenanigans of me being an entrepreneur in this large corporation. And he goes, I am very proud of you. You've done such a great job with your training class. He goes, but the problem is we're a research center.
Yeah.
And he said, we're getting known for being a training place. So we don't want to be known for being a training place. He goes, so I would like you to take your course and leave.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
And he goes, but if you don't want to do that, because we like you, we have a new home for you. And they wanted me to go back to doing like durability electronic stuff, right?
yeah.
He goes, we have a home for you as a research scientist. We know you're a good engineer. He said, I'll pave the way. Because when you create a product for somebody else, they don't usually let you leave and take it.
Yeah, you're right.
But they didn't
take it.
Yeah, but they let me take it. And I picked door number one.
Yeah,
I'm an entrepreneur. I picked door number one. And I said, I really appreciate the offer about the other job because it was nice. I was a single mom. It was risky, right? I had already failed a business. When you fail one business, you're a little gun shy, right?
Mhm.
And my brother had just made it big with one of his companies.
Oh, really? Good.
And he said, I think you should go for it. He goes, and I'll back you up, right? Which is nice. I came from a large family. We have each other's back. So that was nice. And so I jumped ship and I started Cheetah. And I wrote a book called Cheetah Project Management. And it was so funny because when I designed my course and I wrote my book, I did not know about the Project Management Institute, right? Talk about nincompoop, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, as a former program manager, I hear about your one-day course. The training on program management, I'm getting a headache just thinking about the years, not just, hey, a 5-day course, trainings after trainings, nonstop. Nobody could possibly retain all of the information. 99% of it, they're not going to use anyway. I would love to even hear just a little bit about what's involved in that program management course you have.
The project management. My first book was Cheetah Project Management. And it was basically, how do you get a whole team together really quick on who needs to do what when? And I needed to be taken seriously. So I had to get the PMP.
Okay. Yeah.
And so the project management professional. And I looked at that. It was back in 2001. And the project management body of knowledge was written like a mil-spec. And people were studying this document for 6 months. And at 40% of them were failing the exam. And this exam had been around for 15 years. And there were only 40,000 people certified. I said, this is insane.
Mm-hmm.
This is insane. There's no reason people need to spend 6 months studying this. So I rolled out a program and did it in 4 days. And I had my students go in and take the actual exam on the 5th day. So in order to do that, I had to work with them ahead of time to get their eligibility application in. So that was one of the big things different that we did is we made sure our students were eligible before they even started our class, and they'd go in and take the test on the 5th day. The first time I rolled it out was the week of 9/11.
Oh, no.
We're all out on break. We're in Massachusetts, Marlborough, Mass.
Marlborough.
And we saw the plane fly into the second building, all of us, and from the class. So we decided together as a class what we were going to do. And we all decided to continue because they couldn't go anywhere anyways. My students had flown in from all over the US.
Sure.
They couldn't go anywhere. And every single one of them passed the exam, which was great. My very first class for that. Mm-hmm. And it took off like wildfire. But luckily, I had learned a lot. And so I had already set the company up. So when I bombed my Wired for Success company, I had gotten a lot of business creating people's websites because I had to create a website for Wired for Success.
Yeah. And back then, that wasn't like making a website today.
No, it wasn't. And so I knew how to do websites, and I had created the whole back-end course management system for Cheetah. And so basically the company had all of the infrastructure in place to take off, to scale. And because I had set up a business to scale with Wired for Success. So I just took all of my infrastructure from Wired for Success and I rolled it into Cheetah.
And so what year was this now? When
2001.
Okay, gotcha.
So my company grew. 2001, I made $250,000. 2002, I made $2.5 million. By 2005, I was making $15 million a year.
Wow.
And so it was all because I had known how to create the scalable back-end web system.
Oh,
and so we've had 80,000 students in the past 22 years go through Cheetah.
And how did you start getting so many people into the system? Was a lot of it word of mouth? Were you advertising?
We were great at viral marketing. I'd learned a lot doing Wired for Success, and I would give away for free just about what everybody was selling. So I had this free guide that was mostly the same thing that was in most people's classes.
Mm-hmm.
And we help people get eligible. So that's a big deal, because what I didn't know at the time is that, let's say that you go take someone else's class and you're not eligible yet to take the PMP.
Mm-hmm.
Over 50% of the people won't even do the eligibility application because they're so freaked out
Yeah.
by what's required and they don't think they're qualified. So we cut that off at the pass by making them do the eligibility application before they come to class, because then they're on the hook to take the test. 98% of our students pass the test the first time. Wow. So we actually grew the entire industry, because now there's over 1 million people who have PMP certified. So we went from 40,000 people in 2001 to now over 1 million. So Project Management Institute gave us all types of awards, named me one of the most influential women in project management worldwide, which was really great for business.
Yeah, I bet.
My whole idea, though, in 1995 was to run a virtual company.
And now you're doing it. It sounds
now
like
I'm doing it because of COVID.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, I had virtual and online training forever for Cheetah, right? And then in COVID, we had everything all set up and ready to go. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boom.
And then it just went, huh?
All to virtual. And then in 2021, I was becoming really well known for finishing projects very fast. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I was bored in Alaska. I was living in Alaska, and I was spending my whole day on the computer. So I don't know if anybody else can commiserate with it. Right? And I said, you know what? I need to get out in the public more, but I'm bored going to meetings and stuff like that. So I set up a business that would get me outside of the house more. And it was a spice company. So it's called Alaska Spice Shop. And I set it up. I took Christmas vacation, and in 2 weeks over Christmas vacation, I set up Alaska Spice Shop. And I called one of my friends who ran a little gift store, and I was telling her about what I was doing, and I wanted to know how much she thought I could sell my spices for. And I had these little funny names like Roadkill Rub and Poultrygeist, and they're just really funny spice blend names. She said, "Are you going to the gift show in Anchorage next week?" And I said, "What is that?" She goes, "It's where all the people selling stuff like what you sell get together, and then the buyers from the stores all around Alaska that support the cruise ship industry will buy their products." I said, "I will see if I can go now." And that was only 2 weeks into setting up the business. And luckily I had already the labels designed and I had the website up and stuff. So I went and we took over the market because our main competitor didn't show up.
Oh, fantastic.
So 3 weeks in, I had like massive amount of business for the spice shop. And then we had to deliver. And it was really remarkable. People were like, "You've only been in business 2 weeks." Like my friends who were other business owners said, "That's just amazing what you did in 2 weeks."
Yeah, you've got the golden touch.
So I said, you know what, it's a process I follow.
Yeah.
So I decided to write that into a book called Cheetah Agile Projects. And it's how to finish significant projects in 2 weeks. That's pretty significant to have a business go from nothing to taking over the market.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
So that's what my Cheetah Agile Project book is about. And it's about how do you get significant projects. And we're not talking insignificant, we're talking like massive projects done in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, that's huge. And that's the book I'm looking at, I think, right now.
That's the book you're looking at. So I have a 4-week course on how to do this, and you become Cheetah Agile certified. And what's really cool about this is Agile is a big name in project management these days. I don't know if you heard about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now, so it's big in software, but I use it for everything, right? And so my students become Cheetah Agile certified in 4 weeks. But the really cool thing about it is it's tied into LinkedIn. I have a credential that's tied into LinkedIn. And so the starting salaries for people who are Agile certified is $110,000. It's
a great salary.
It's a great salary. So basically, I could take a 25-year-old like I was at 25, right? They can go through my Cheetah Agile certified class. And in 4 weeks, they'll be Cheetah Agile certified. They throw it up on their LinkedIn, and they can be off and running as a certified Agile project manager in 4 weeks.
That's perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I should have taken one of your courses, but we just launched a CRM designed for selling to the government because we saw that nothing really worked out of the box. But it did not take 2 weeks to put that together. I can tell you, probably would have helped to have some of that training for me and the team.
Yeah. So I break everything now down into 2-week increments. I just finished building a new home for the spice business.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
Because I spent a lot of time up in Alaska during COVID, and it was like, I'm getting older. I couldn't leave because of COVID. It was hard to move around, and they stopped the ferry service and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what? I need to find a new home for like the next 20 years. It's not going to be here.
Not gonna be
And plus,
Alaska.
I got tired of walking through 5 feet of snow to get to my spice shop.
Oh yeah.
So I built a new place that has the spice shop commercial kitchen within my house, which is cool. And I sold my other house. And so I had to get it finished. So I had 8 weeks to finish it. And we didn't have the floor in. It was just finishing the sheetrock. The sheetrock had just gotten finished. And I had 8 weeks to finish the house.
And you managed to do that?
Yes, I did 4 2-week sprints.
Okay. And you must have been controlling the teams putting that house together because
Yeah, I bought a camper and I lived on site. And I was managing the teams. And so every morning we have what's called the daily stand-up. We'd have a daily stand-up. We talk about what they did yesterday, what we did today, what are any of the roadblocks. My doing job was chopping down all their roadblocks so they could do the work. What type of people do we need to bring in? Everybody that was there had a say in who I brought in because the team dynamics were really important. And it was funny because I had this one guy that came over and we were interviewing him for tiling and he left and everybody said, don't hire him. We don't like him. So I didn't hire him. They all had to say managing your team is really important. And we just did 2-week sprints. And so we got the whole floor in and the trim went in 2 weeks. We trimmed out a huge facility in 2 weeks. It was incredible. It was a mind-blowing 8 weeks.
I think most people listening to this probably have their minds blown if they ever even just tried to do a renovation project in their house that should have taken a month. All of a sudden turns into a 6-month project for some reason. I know we're running short on time. So before we close, what would I be doing if I didn't ask you about your government contracts or how you sell to the government? I know we talked a little bit before this and you have a little bit of a different approach. Typically, we're talking about more traditional government contracts, the $40 million ones you're working on.
Yeah, we don't do that.
But there are some products and there are some solutions where it works. I usually refer to it as bottoms up selling, where typically you're not targeting the user in the government, but there are some circumstances where you can do that. And yours is obviously one of them. Can you tell us a little bit about that for people that maybe have a product that's a lower price or something that's maybe training, something along these lines? It might give some people some ideas on what'll work for them.
All right. So we do have corporate accounts, right? And we are getting back on the GSA list for corporate accounts. But a lot of our business, we call it business to business consumer. So like we have a lot of people from FAA. I was talking about the Coast Guard. Like this one office in the Coast Guard, everybody that gets PMP certified is just go through Cheetah, like Los Alamos National Labs, Sandia National Labs. It's just known, just go through Cheetah. And we make the price point low enough that they can do it on their card.
Yeah.
Right. That's a big deal.
On a GPC card.
That you have to make sure you know what the price point is, right? And you can't make your product over that because then people can't pay for it. So we also have a government rate. So they all know what the government rate is and they just put that in and then they get the Cheetah government rate. But once you have, like we've always been business to business consumer. And early on, I met somebody who ran a pretty successful training company, but their biggest client was Chase. And Chase canned them and they lost their company. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I would rather I have 80,000 students from all over the place. And they're the ones who refer business to us, right?
Yeah.
You got to make sure that your price point is something that an individual can spend if you're going to go to business consumer. And the GSA pricing is really important to us because it really helps me negotiate with other companies because they want me to give them preferential terms. I'm like, I cannot give you anything more preferential than what I have given the GSA.
Right. That's right. You can't make an offer that's lower than that price that the government can buy your product on. Yeah.
So it's helped me tremendously. So I highly recommend that people, because it makes negotiating so much easier. And then I just had this guy, he said last week, don't take advantage of me. Give me a fair rate. I said, I am giving you the GSA rate. And I said, I cannot give you a lower rate than the GSA rate. So this is the lowest I can go. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And
no,
that
you're right.
it's made negotiating very easy. So that's the number one thing I would do. Just work on getting on that GSA list. Make sure that if you have a low price point product that People can buy it, whether they're calling the UPT card. And then we have something called the CAGE code that's really important. You have, make sure you have all those little boxes checked.
Sure.
We have FAA, HUD, Homeland Security, a lot of different weird agencies come through us too. They're a bunch of alphabet soup. And I'd say 40% of my business is federal government.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's a different way of thinking about selling to the government. If you have, whether it's a training or even maybe a tool that's lower priced, GPC card, it used to be $10,000 or less could go in a GPC card. For people that don't know, like every office is going to have a government purchase card, a government credit card, because they have to buy office supplies. They have to buy, they're not doing these 2-year-long competitions to buy some of the office furniture that you might need or something small. But so whether it is certification, I know booksellers that do this as well, because it's, hey, I'm going to sell you 100 leadership books for your squadron and you can hit your government rate. But you can also not necessarily, so this is technically not a government contract, but you can also sell directly to the individual. So if you have everybody in the FAA sending their people to your certification program, so I, Ricky Howard, I might be paying for it with my personal credit card, but I'm still a member of the FAA. It's a method of targeting. And then maybe I'm getting reimbursed because the government, we were both in the Air Force. The Air Force is great at, so is the military, other military services at reimbursing you for what you pay for things like certifications in school. It might be something that the GI Bill can reimburse you for. You just never know.
Yeah, so I'm going to put a big plug in for PMP. I think PMP, getting the project management professional, especially if you're in the military right now, is a great career transition. Credential, because it's so easy to get a job as a project management professional.
Oh yeah, I know plenty of people that have done that. I would say that maybe the CISP if you're a cyber person, but PMP is probably the number one certification people are thinking about when they come out.
So we have a number of defense contractors too that are our clients. Some of the big IT ones put a couple hundred people through a year. Because but one of the reasons is because they can charge 3 times more for that project manager. Our price point is higher than our other competitors, but the reason is because people pass the test in 4 days. They don't have to spend 6 months. So if you're a defense contractor and you're going after defense contracts, you need a PMP to run that contract, but you also can charge more for that person. So we charge about $4,500 for our class. So it costs about $5,000 total when you factor in the test. Right. So when you get that person certified in 4 days and it costs $5,000 and you can now raise their rate from $120 to $360 an hour, you get a payback in 4 days on that. So do you want to take that and stretch it out for 6 months? You're losing $90,000. Like, why do you want to do that? So basically, if a company says, oh, we can get it from XYZ for $2,000, great, good luck, go with them. Because 6 months later, you're only going to have 50% of the people certified. And if you have 50% will take the exam and maybe 30% will pass with that other approach. But if you come through us, 100% of them are going to be passed because we guarantee they pass if they don't refund your money. And you'll have them certified in a week and you can start charging more money for your time. Now you have to give them a raise of about $30,000, but you're making almost $500,000 more on their time.
Yeah. It's a win.
It's a no-brainer for defense contractors. It's
absolutely.
Like, why wouldn't you want your project managers to be PMP certified and get them certified really fast?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great exercise in thinking outside the box a little bit if you're a company as far as government contracting is concerned. Because you have, and I always recommend multiple streams of income. The same reason we were talking about earlier, like, hey, I don't want to be the company where if one client cancels me, I'm done. Right. If you have commercial, whether it's B2B or B2C, if you have government contracts, that's a great way to build your business. But you can also think about, what about the defense contractors? What about the primes that are selling to the government? Right. What can I provide to them? Sometimes it's not necessarily you being on one of their contracts listed as a subcontractor. Right. You might be supplying them with something or training their people like you're doing.
And then basically helping them improve their bottom line and their profitability. Yeah. Because we did a return on equity analysis. With return on equity shows how much are they better using their resources. And we did it for all the companies that hired us for corporate accounts. And we showed 90% of them within a year had a very high return on equity, an increase in return on equity. And that's directly because the people were PMP certified. So PMP isn't just a certification Well, not the way we teach. It's not just a certification to get you more money from the government. It's a certification to make your people better at project management and more productive in project management. And that's the way we teach it. We teach it so that when you learn project management from Cheetah, you never forget it. We like get into your neural networks. And somebody once said, I have this material tattooed on my frontal lobes now. And that's what we do with accelerated learning. We do some really fascinating things. And a lot of people will take our course just to experience accelerated learning, because we say this is like outward bound for your brain.
Yeah.
Because when you spend 4 days studying something as intensely as the PMP with us, and then you go and you take that test, a really hard test, and you pass it on the 5th day, your self-concept is forever changed.
Absolutely. That's for those that haven't looked into it, that is a huge, like, monumental certification that you have to prepare for and get. It's outside of getting a college degree or something. You're right. Usually people have to take months studying and preparing for this thing, and then you got to take it. And I'm just thinking, again, I'm getting a headache having to think about it. But obviously I would much rather jump into something like your course and be done with it in 5 days, have my certification, and actually know and understand the material. Before we close up, could you I've got 2 asks. I've got one is, what advice would you have for the small business owner, entrepreneur that's just getting started, thinking about doing some government contracting or selling to the government, whether traditionally or maybe like you are? And then the next thing is, if you could tell everyone like where they could find you and your material, and if they're interested in taking the course, where do they go?
We're at cheetahlearning.com, the cat cheetah, right? CHEETAH. And it's so funny because when I started this on the East Coast, people were like, are you saying cheater learning? Are you not your R? No, it's cheetah, like the cat, CHEETAH learning.com. And another thing is, I'm going to put up something on our website we can talk about. I can make a little landing page for you. And when you go to publish this, that your listeners can go to. So the Cheetah Agile Project, we're going to give you $500 off for your listeners.
Oh, very cool.
And so I'll put the link up for that with a promo code for you. And for Cheetah Learning, for the PMP, I'll also put a promo code up for you so your listeners can get 5% off for that. Oh. But I guess you could put it in your link, but just go to cheetahlearning.com if you don't want to go to Ricky's link. But that's the way to find us. What else did you ask me? You asked me 2 questions.
Just advice you have for that new business owner. Going after those government contracts.
I have some advice for the new business owner. Sales. You really got to get good at sales, no matter whatever you're uncomfortable with, you really got to lean into it. And I am perpetually working on sales. Now I just hired a new sales team. They're doing great. And I learn a lot from them, and I'm running like crazy to support them. Sales is the number one. And like Contract Academy, I'm sure, is going to teach you how to get business, but learning how to get business, learning how to do sales. It's interesting because you're going to be jack of all when you're getting going. Yep. And you will avoid doing the hard stuff, which sales is the hard stuff. So when I started, I created this little system called the Sales and Marketing Accelerator System. Mm-hmm. And it was more so for me to be disciplined. And every day I had to post it for different things: PR, marketing, content development. Every morning I started with 10 prospecting calls. I took a class on sales, and that's what we recommended, professional prospecting. And now that's easy to do with LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You can get Sales Navigator, and you can do 10 prospecting calls. The first thing every morning, make yourself do it, because that's your lifeblood of your business. Even when you got a contract, even when you're busy, you start out every day making your 10 prospecting calls. Your business is going to be on fire.
Yeah, that is great advice. No sales equals no business. And
right.
I think a lot of business owners struggle with that kind of sine wave of, especially in the beginning. I certainly did. Sell and win. Okay, the selling stops. I'm doing the job because you don't have a big team yet. And then, okay, maybe a client or 2 go away, and now you got to sell again. But you need that discipline that you're talking about of selling every day. It just takes a little bit every day.
Every day.
You can grow, you can flourish, you can keep bringing in new work, and maybe not have to stop everything you're doing to avert a crisis at the end of the day.
And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. If you got into your business because there was something you did that you loved, there's some type of value you're bringing, and you're not a natural salesperson, right? None of us are. Okay. And it was so funny. The first sales class I took, the guys like people that need help.
Yeah, it's true.
If you stumble and you're not perfect and you do some mistakes, people are going to like you more.
That's
Right.
true.
So don't beat yourself up. And it's hard. It's hard to pick up the phone. It's still hard for me to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just not my natural inclination. And so just do it. Especially if you're a former military, you're used to doing hard stuff. It wasn't easy going through officer training and getting up at 5 a.m. and going running every morning. That was not easy. Okay.
It's funny how you have some people that would not even think twice about getting in a plane and flying into combat, but they don't want to pick up the phone and call somebody or send an email or even reach out on LinkedIn. Oh, I can't post
Yeah.
something here about my business to get some PR or whatever your marketing goals are. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And sales is everything as far as keeping your business growing. And that is great advice.
Yeah. So learn how to sell and don't be afraid of it.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for coming on here today. This has been an awesome conversation. As everyone can probably tell, we probably could have gone on for another hour here, just to let the conversation going. So may warrant another one here sometime in the future, see how everything's going with you. But thanks for coming on here today. And for those at home, check out the show notes to get any of the links that Michelle talked about. If you want to go to her website, check out any of her products or training. And then if you want help selling to the government, go to dodcontract.com. Check out our online training academy and our new CRM and pipelining tool, GovClose. And until then, I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.